Souls, welcome to my channel, The Divine Light Healing. My name is Shamili Majumdar. Have you ever reached a point where you simply stopped explaining yourself? Not because you had nothing to say, but because you suddenly realized you don't need to explain yourself anymore. You don't need to prove that you're hurt. You don't need to convince someone of your intentions. You don't need to chase a response, and you don't need to keep participating in conversations that constantly drain you. Sometimes silence isn't emptiness, silence is a shift. What if your silence is an energy shift? Now let's understand the parts through which ultimately one reaches that goal. Part 1. When you stop reacting. For many of us, reacting becomes automatic. Someone says something very hurtful, we immediately defend ourselves. Someone ignores us, we chase an explanation. Someone misunderstands us, we try to desperately correct their perception. Someone withdraws, we start wondering, what did I do wrong? And slowly we begin living in reaction to other people's behavior. Their mood affects our mood. Their attention affects our confidence. And their approval affects our sense of worth. Their silence makes us anxious. But healing begins when you realize you don't have to emotionally participate in everything that happens around you. You can pause, breathe, and observe. And you can choose your response. That pause is very powerful. Because from the trigger and the reaction, there is a sacred space. And in that space, you begin to reclaim yourself. Part 2. Silence can be a boundary. Silence doesn't always mean avoidance. Sometimes it means I choose not to argue. I choose not to explain myself repeatedly. I choose not to engage with disrespect. And I choose peace over proving a point. But there's a difference. Be mindful, there's a difference between silent treatment and healthy silence. Silent treatment is often used to punish or manipulate, to create pressure. But healthy silence is different. Healthy silence says, I am stepping back because this conversation is no longer productive for me. It does not come from revenge. It comes from awareness. You stop asking, how can I make them understand me? And you start asking, is this situation worthy of my energy? Now this is a completely different perspective or a question. Third part, why your energy feels different. When you stop constantly reacting, something interesting happens. Your mind becomes quieter. You begin noticing things you couldn't see before. You notice which conversations leave you exhausted. You notice which relationships require you to constantly prove your worth. You notice how often you say yes when you actually mean no. And you notice how much time you spend thinking about people who aren't even thinking about you. And you begin to recognize your own patterns. This is where spiritual growth can become very practical. Instead of saying everyone is draining my energy, try asking, where am I repeatedly giving my attention away? Because wherever attention flows, your energy also flows. And sometimes transformation begins when you stop giving unlimited attention to things that keep you emotionally stuck. Now, there are moments in life when many people seem to experience similar feelings, or at the same time, people may suddenly feel more reflective, more sensitive, more aware of relationships, more interested in solitude, more drawn towards healing and self-discovery. Change often begins internally before it becomes visible externally. You may not have changed your entire life yet, But something inside you has changed. The things you tolerated before may no longer feel acceptable. The conversations that once entertained you may now feel exhausting. The need for constant validation may begin to disappear, and you may find yourself saying, I don't want to live like this anymore. This realization can be the beginning of transformation. So, there are three signs of silence is a shift. Sign number one, you stop explaining yourself. You realize that people who genuinely want to understand you don't need endless explanations. You become comfortable with being misunderstood by people who have already decided how they want to perceive you. You choose clarity over convincing. Sign 2, you stop chasing. You stop chasing replies, attention, relationships that only exist when you carry them. You begin allowing reciprocity to reveal itself, and you realize what is meant to be mutual shouldn't require you to beg for basic efforts. Sign number 3, you become comfortable with your own company. This is powerful. You don't need constant noise or constant notifications, or you don't need anybody to know what you're doing. You begin enjoying your own presence, and solitude stops feeling like rejection. It starts feeling restoration. And most important part, your silence is not for everybody to understand. One of the hardest parts of personal growth is realizing that not everybody will understand your transformation. Some people know or knew the version of you who always responded, helped, explained, made excuses, or stayed. So when you establish boundaries, they may say you have changed, and they may be right. You have changed. But changing isn't always betrayal. Sometimes changing is growth. You're allowed to become more peaceful, more selective. You're allowed to protect your time. You're allowed to stop participating in dynamics that repeatedly hurt you. Your growth doesn't require everybody else's approval. So bring your energy home. So what do you do when you feel this shift happening? Start simple. Before responding, pause and reflect. Before explaining, ask whether explanation is actually necessary. Before chasing, ask whether the connection is reciprocal. And every day, give yourself moments without noise. Put the phone down, walk in nature, journal, meditate, pray if that feels meaningful to you. Sit quietly and listen to your own thoughts. Because when the external noise becomes quieter, you may finally hear what your inner world has been trying to tell you all this time. And perhaps the question isn't why are they changing? Perhaps the question is what is changing within me. So, let the old patterns become silent, and let your inner voice become louder, and let your next chapter begin. Welcome to EduBloom. I'm Shomili, and I'm so excited to have you here. I'm a researcher, a teacher, book author, and more. If you're passionate about learning, exploring new ideas, and growing your knowledge, you have come to the right place. On this channel, we will dive into science, geography, education, research, career guidance, and much more in very simple and engaging way.